Hello everyone. So in this lecture, we're going to be talking about the proxy chains. As you can see, I am using the Kali Linux as my virtual machine. So here we're gonna use this proxy chain and demonstrate how this is works. So let's talk about first the proxy chain. What is this, the proxy chain? So proxy chains is a open source software that is available free and most of the Linux distributor, and it is pre-installed. As you can see, I didn't have to do anything. It is already pre-installed. So if you are using the latest version of Kali Linux, it is pre-installed in it. Proxy chain is a tool that redirects the TCP, which means the transmission control protocol, that connects with the help of proxies like Tor, HTTPS, and SOCKS, and it creates a proxy chain server. When we are using the proxy chain, we can hide our IP addresses in the real world. In Kali Linux, when we are using any tools, that time source IP address is our main, and if you are using proxy chains, that time our IP will be hidden, and when you are scanning or visiting any website we give there, then our IP addresses as there are logs and they will be hidden and not in the real one. So proxy chain is very useful. So if you are only visiting the web page, that you can use Tor browser, but if you want to hide your whole traffic, then you have to use proxy chain. So let's talk about a couple of the proxy chains features, like it supports SOCKS S5 or SOCKS 4 and HTTP Connect proxy servers. So proxy chain can be mixed up with any different proxy types of list. And then proxy chain also support any kind of chaining option method like random, which takes a random proxy in the list that is stored in a configuration file that will show in the later, or chaining proxy in the exact order list, and different proxies that separated by a new line in a file. Then proxy chains can be used with servers like Squid, SendMail, etc. Proxy chain is capable to do DNS resolving through proxy. And at last, the proxy chains can handle any TCP client application like Nmap, Telnet, etc. So what is the proxy chain syntax? So as you can see, I am using a Kali Linux. So instead of running a penetration tool or creating multiple requests to any target directly using our IP, we can let proxy chains cover and handle the job. Just type command proxy chains for every job. That means we enable the proxy chain service. For example, we want to scan the available host and its ports in our network using Nmap. So Nmap using proxy chains, the command should be like Nmap then 192.168.1.1/4. So this proxy chains tell our machine to run the proxy chain service. This Nmap, this will do the job like proxy chains to be covered, and this is the argument or any argument that needed by a certain job or tool. So in this case, our scan range needed to be Nmap to run this scan. So if you just type this, as you can see, it will run this Nmap and it will take a couple of seconds. So before, as you can see, Nmap scan all of those using these IP addresses. So as you can see, there are a couple of ports are open, like there are TCP ports open, which are HTTP service and UPnP services. As you can see, all of those you can see in here. So let's now talk about how to use proxy chains. So before you are using proxy chains, we need to set up the proxy chain configuration file. We also need a list of proxy servers. So proxy chain configuration file can be located in your Kali Linux machine. So go to your root directory, then you have to go this etc directory, then alternatives, and in here you will see lots of file, but don't get confused. You will see a proxychain file in here. So let's just search. As you can see, this is the file we need to configure. So what you have to do now is we have to open the proxychain configuration file in your desirable text editor to set up some configuration, and let's demonstrate this. I already did this, so let's just demonstrate in a slideshow. So this. So what you have to do is open a proxychain.configuration file and then scroll down until you reach at the bottom. As you can see, I am at the bottom, and at the end you will find this proxy list, add proxy here. So by default, proxychains directly sends the traffic fast through our host, which is 127.0.0, this one, on port 9050, which is the default Tor configuration. So if you are using Tor, leave it as it is. If you are not using Tor, you will need to comment out this line. Now we need to add more proxies. So there are free proxy servers on the internet. You may look on the Google for it and you will find like many VPN services. Here I am using NordVPN, which is a free VPN service, as it has very detailed information on their website, as you can see in here. What you have to do now is you have to comment the default proxy. So what you have to do is comment the default proxy to Tor. So if you are using or if you are not using the Tor, then you need to add the proxy on proxychains configuration file. As you can see, this is the configuration file that we are editing, and then after doing this we just save and it will look like this. As you can see, it will look like this. Now what I have to do now is I have to like go in here. So you will see a lot of like dynamic chain, straight chain, or random chain. So what is dynamic chain versus random chain? So dynamic chain will enable us to run our traffic through every proxy on our list. So, and even one of the proxies is down and not responding, the dead proxies are then skipped. It will automatically go to the next proxy in the list without throwing an error. Each connection will have done via the chain proxies. All proxies will be chained in the order as they appear in the list. Activate dynamic chaining allows for the greater anonymity and trouble-free active or hacking experiences. And I will always recommend to use the dynamic chain. To enable dynamic chain in the configuration file, just uncomment. As you can see, this is the uncomment. So just uncomment this dynamic chain line. And then this is the random chain. So random chaining will allow proxy chains to randomly choose IP addresses from our list, and each time we use proxy chains, the chain of proxy will look different to the target, making it harder to track our traffic from its source. To activate random chaining, comment out this random chain. The chain of the proxy will look different to the target, making it harder to track our traffic from its source. Since we can only use one of these option at a time, make certain that you comment out the other option in the section before using proxy chains. You may want to use uncomment the line, then chain underscore length, this one. This option will determine how many of the IP addresses in your chain will be used in creating a random proxy chain. So as you can see, that's pretty much easy, and now we can now we can know and use the hacker to use the proxy chain to cover their identity. That's how they use it, and to stay anonymous without worrying about the detected by the target ideas or forensic investigators. So that's how people use proxy chains. It's very easy. So make sure you try it. So in this lecture, we're going to be talking about how to set up a proxy server for traffic monitoring. In a few countries, there are a lot of restrictions according to the internet uses. Restricted website, banned web services, or any kind of internal censorship. Most of the time, people appeal for anonymity service to bypass that bar. One common element is that web proxy. A web or HTTP proxy is a server that acts as a middleman between the two communication, like client server. In a certain way, this proxy will mask your IP address by giving you an alternative internet identity. A proxy is used for more than privacy. This tool helps to bypass filters, logging, and eavesdropping, caching, filtering, blocking, manipulate, and modify the network traffic, and many more. So I will emphasize network traffic in this lecture. So have you ever thought about that what can happen if you use a free proxy service? Your privacy can be guaranteed. So there is a lot of paid tools that can be trusted, but a lot of people do not pay for this service. The person or the group control of a proxy can see your traffic, especially if it is a free proxy. So actually how it is works. So there is a lot of proxies out there. So I am going to shortly explain the types of proxies and how it works. So forward proxies. For this type, the client sends the request to proxy and fetches the response on behalf, where the client can or know about the proxy, but the server doesn't know about the proxy at all. The order will be something like this: client to proxy and then server. Reverse proxy. This is used to hide behind network architecture for distributing load traffic to the server. The communication are made to the proxy instead of the servers, and then the same proxy would handle the request, and it's something like this, the order. Transparent proxies. This kind of proxy does not modify any information without any client configuration. This is commonly used for ISP for faster responses. So great. How do you connect to a proxy? So there is a more browser setting setup instead of doing a like techie. So if you use browser, then just go to setting your advanced network and manual proxy setting. You can change it, where you are going to add IP address and port provided by the proxy service. So at this point, we all set to start using a proxy, but there is some missing part in here. We need to install and configure a proxy server. So I am going to give you a quick explanation because later on I will get more details about it. So for this, I recommend using a Linux based, which is like Debian preferable OS. So we are going to use a proxy chain, and this tool I already previously shown in my previous lecture how you can use proxy chains on your Kali Linux machine or any Linux distributor which is pre-installed, which I previously shown. And this tool forces any TCP connection made by any application to follow through a proxy. To install, just type this apt-get install proxy chains and it will automatically install proxy chain. You don't need to do anything. And to configure, you need to configure this is the directory. So this is the configuration file. So in this directory you can configure this proxy chain, and we have to comment the strict underscore chain option. Basically this means that if one of the proxies for this list is down, the whole chain will be unusable. So after this, you can uncomment this dynamic underscore chain option regardless if all the proxies are available, the chain will work, dead proxies will be skipped. The proxy list will use the default the Tor network in case you won't put something on the proxy list in order to anonymize you. So how to use it? As a non-root user, you can just use proxychain Firefox. So type this and leave the terminal open when typing the proxychain. But how can you set up your own proxy server? So we are going to generate a cloud called Divine Machine, and you will be installing a proxy server called Squid3 for handling personal traffic to demonstrate how you can be monitored and easily know your destination and package detail using the Wireshark or T-Shark network analyzer. So generating SSH keys and blocking root access, which mean the minimum security control. So first, generate SSH keys for accessing the server doing this command. So this bold, as you can see, these bold are for the command purposes or for terminal purpose. So once you done, once this is done, once this key command line is done, you will be have a file name this on the directory of this for the username locked. So what you have to do now is you have to copy the generated key into a digital ocean instance by doing a char id _rsa.pub. So after that, accessing via the SSH is like this, SSH root _ IP, where the IP will be the IP address instead of provider with the digital ocean. So the last one will be sent to the email with the root password. Adding other users for security purposes by add user David. So set the password using the this command, password command, and changing the authentication method on the SSHD configuration file will let user to access the only SSH part only. So after that, what you have to do now is copy and generate the root authentication key ownership to the same user, that David. As you can see, this David will disable the root access to the server. So after that, what you have to do now is install and configure the proxy servers. So installing the Squid3 proxy server, what you have to do now is just type on your Linux machine this is the command, install Squid3. It will automatically do everything, you don't even need to do anything. So after that, you have to back up the config file, and this is the configuration file and this is the directory. So what you have to do now next is change the write to the backup, which is the this is the command line. So there is a exception, so everybody can read the file but you can read it. So inside this file, this configuration file, you can change the TCP port if you want. So by default there will be like TCP port will be like 3128. So before starting the server, we need a firewall hole. So you can check ports with the nmap, as you all know what nmap is. So nmap tool, it is also pre-installed on Kali Linux machine, so just use it. So nmap tool by doing a nmap space under your IP address of that machine. So checking the Squid3 service by doing a this command, this will start the service, and if it is necessary then it will need to do all of this. So setting the Squid3 proxy server on the location of this directory and this configuration file like this. After that, type the command of HTTP your IP address and then the port, and the default port by is 3128, or the as you can see the default port provided by the port service. So if you scan with nmap, the 3128 port on the Squid3 service won't be on the server. So next we're going to talk about the configuration file and sniffing, and then serve to the local machine. So now what you have to do now is you have to configure the squid3 file. So now, as previously described, that you have to uncomment certain things. So uncomment this for, and this is for the banning ports. If it isn't on port 80, the connection gonna be get a drop, and this command will, in default this is deny all the permission. By setting this into allow, we have to be responsible for doing things done on the proxy, and this is for the honeypot proxy servers. So restarting the squid3 service after changes like this, typing this, it will easily automatically restart. Then what you have to do now is ensure all the browser instances are closed. This is the important part, and then trigger the proxies in Firefox using this command. Now what you have to do now is sniffing your proxy server. So on the same server instance, we start sniffing by installing T-Shark, and most of the Linux distributor has a T-Shark pre-installed, like Kali Linux has all of those pre-installed. So, or if you don't have any pre-installed, just type this command, install T-Shark, it will automatically install. So sniffing the ETH0, this is the network monitor. So ETH0 means wired network, and this is the wired network. This will vary from machine to machine, because you may have like ETH1 or WLAN 0 or WLAN 1, something like this. So make sure you check your own one. Because this was mine, so I sniffed this interface by TCP on port 3120, just typing this. So for verification, you can test the DNS leak test on the public IP address. Now we are going to set a pipe from the server to our local machine. So we are going to stream the traffic to the machine over SSH and push it to the Wireshark for the monitoring. So on the DigitalOcean instance, just install this Wireshark. Most of the, as usual, as previously told, most of the Linux distributor has a Wireshark pre-installed. So it's better to use the Kali Linux, because Kali Linux has all the tools, penetration or attacking, all tools are pre-installed. So don't have to install a specific one manually. So, or if you don't have install, so just type this and it will automatically install. Then what you have to do now is setting the users on the Wireshark group, and you cannot run Wireshark as a root. So just type this user mode Wireshark as David, and then the new group command configures the group membership with which a user will log in. So the new group Wireshark, this is the group configuration. This will let running the T-Shark command. This is because this is the command on a regular user. So on the host machine, we are going to pipe the output of the embedded T-Shark pickup file. So all those files that Wireshark will save on your directory that we previously mentioned or selected, all those Wireshark file will be .pcap. So all those file extension has a pcap extension at the end. So make sure you remember, because this is the Wireshark file, and this is the tricky part for the workshop, and this is the final command line. So let me define. So as you know, Wireshark is the Wireshark command, as you all know, and -i, it is the interface, and -i does not necessarily a network interface. In this case, a live stream interface going to output the redirection, and then the Command specifies, as you all know, this is the T-shark as previously, -f. So -f pcap is the default format for T-shark. Then -w for writing is defined as the writing on the standard output, and this will prompt the GUI of Wireshark, which we previously installed, and will sniff the incoming traffic. You can then also filter the incoming traffic by a Wireshark GUI like this. So we are going this is the filter, because in Wireshark GUI interface you have a option like in the upper side corner, upper left, there is an option called filter. So in filter you're just gonna type this. So we're gonna filter this port from 80 to this port. So the Wireshark filter should display your own traffic coming from HTTP ports to TCP ports. So that's how you use a proxy to sniff or monitor traffic, and this is the way for the filtering. This is the part of filtering. So in summary, how do you learn? So we learned that the person who controls the proxy server can see all the sites that you are visiting, all the places that you are going, log all of your traffic information, and many more that you cannot even imagine. Many source IP addresses on 3128 port, as this port that we are used will be your home router. Someone can look at your router and access it, because most of us use the default router setting, because most of our router setting has admin as username, admin as password, like in my TP-Link. So make sure you change your router default password, and it's a must, I guess. I will say it's a must for every penetration tester, because someone can look at your router and access it, and they can do a lot of things that you cannot even imagine. They can change the DNS server, monitor all the URLs that you requested, and your PC can be placed on DMZ on the router, and many things. And you cannot see the encrypted data easily, and at the end the anonymity is a relative on all of this. So that's how you set up your proxy server and monitor the traffic. So in this lecture we're going to be talking about SOCKS 5 proxy tunneling with dynamic ports. There are times when you want to browse the internet privately, access geo-restricted content, or bypass any intermediate firewall your network might be enforcing. One option is to use a VPN, but that requires installing a client software on your machine and setting up your own VPN server, or subscribing to a VPN service, which might cost you some money. The simpler alternative is to route your local network traffic with an encrypted SOCKS proxy. This way, all your application using the proxy will connect to the SSH server, and the server will forward all the traffic to its actual destination. Your internet service provider and other third parties will not be able to inspect your traffic and block your access to the websites. So in this lecture, we'll walk through the process of creating an encrypted SSH tunnel and configure Firefox and Google Chrome web browser to use the SOCKS proxy. So there are some prerequisites to this, like you need to have a server running any flavor of Linux with a SSH access to your router, and you route through your traffic through it, and you have to have a web browser, and you have to have a SSH client. So in first, what you have to do is you have to set up a SSH tunnel. So we'll create an SSH tunnel that will securely forward traffic from your local machine on port 9090 to the SSH server on port 22. You can use any port number greater than 1024. Only root can open port on privileged ports. So if you run Linux, Mac OS or any other Unix based operating system on your local machine, you can easily start an SSH tunnel with simple this command line. So let's define what this is. So SSH, as you know, this is the SSH command, and -n tells SSH not to execute a remote command. This -d 9090 opens a sock tunnel onto the specific port number, this one, and user a server IP. So this is your remote SSH user and server IP address. To run the command in the background, just use a -f option. So if your SSH server is listening on a port other than 22, which is the default, use the -p, which is the port number option. So once you run the command, you will be prompted to enter your user password. So after entering it, you will be logging into your server and the SSH tunnel will be established. You can set up an SSH key based authentication and connect to your server without entering a password. So in Windows user can create an SSH tunnel using the PUTTY SSH client. So you can download PUTTY in just Google. You have just search PUTTY SSH client and you will get that instantly with a single search. So just download and install, pretty easy process. So then launch the PuTTY and enter your server IP address in the host name. As you can see this in here, host name or IP address field. So under the connection menu, as you can see this sidebar, under the connection menu, expand the SSH, select the tunnels, enter the port in here in this field 9090 as previously declined in here. So select the port 9090 in the source port field and check the dynamic. Make sure this is selected, make sure this is selected the dynamic radio button. Then click the add. Just click the add button to show this, and this will be shown like this. So what you have to do now is you have to go back to the session page and to save the settings, what you have, and you have to save the settings so that you do not need to enter them each time. So make sure you save it with the name save session field in here and click the save. Then what you have to do now is you have to select the, as you can see, select the save session and log into the remote server by clicking and open this button. So make sure you open only on clean exit. This is selected and make sure your SS is selected and port on 22 and your host name, IP address. Make sure you check all of this. And the most important part is make sure you save this my proxy, save, click save and select this save and open. Then a new window will be asking for your username and password that will show up. So once you enter your username password, you will be logged into your server and the SSH tunnel will be started. Setting up a public key authentication will allow you to connect to your server without entering a password. So configure your browser to use the proxy. So now that we have opened our SSH socks tunnel, the last step is to configure your preferred browser to use it. So we are going to use our Firefox. So this will be the step. So make just easy. Go to your Firefox menu, click on the preference link or preference option, and scroll down to the network setting, and scroll down to the setting button, and then a new windows will open, and then this panel or page will open. Then select it will basically in default it will be auto detect proxy. So in default it will be selected in here. So but what you have to do now is you have to select this manual proxy configuration. Then these all will be blank. So what you have to do is you have the SOX5 host to set as this in the field and set port as 9090. Check the proxy DNS when, as you can see, SOX5. Make sure you select this, not SOX4, because we are working on our SOX5. So make sure you select this checkbox. This is the important part, and then select no proxy for this, and click after that, or you have to tick this button, proxy DNS, when using SOX5. Because this will be in default, this will be blank, not one will be selected. So make sure you select this one and then just click OK. So at this point, after clicking OK, your Firefox is configured and you can browse the internet through the SSH tunnel. So to verify, you can open like an easy google.com and type "what's my IP," and you should see your server IP address instead of your original IP address. So to revert back the default setting, so just easy, just go to the network setting and use the proxy setting to select the auto, and it will be all default as previously it will be selected in your default IP address. So there are also several plugins that can help you to configure Firefox proxy settings, such as like Foxy proxy, and in Google Chrome you can use a default system proxy setting instead of changing your operating system with proxy command. You can use an additional, such as you should use a command line. You should launch a Chrome with a new profile and you use your SSH tunnel to use the command like this. This will be the command line for Linux and this will be for the Windows. So after typing this command line, the profile will be created automatically. So if it doesn't exist, this way you can use multiple instances of Chrome at the same time. To configure the SSH tunnel input to which is working properly, just type google.com and check your IP address. It should be show your browser IP address instead of your original IP address. So in conclusion, we learned that how to set up an SSH SOX5 tunnel and configure our browser to access the internet privately and anonymously. For ease of use, you can use or define the SSH tunnel in your SSH configuration file or create a bash alias that will set up the SSH tunnel and start the browser. And that's all about the SOX5 proxy tunneling with dynamic ports.